Okay, today is November 1st. It's All Saints' Day. For Catholics, that's only a celebration for the special saints, such as Saint Patrick. For Protestants, that's for the anybody who is able to attain the heavenly enlightenment. And so the Protestant Revolution was a separation from Catholics for that reason, that the regular people could be participating in so this one's going to be about Joseph Smith as the Messiah of the last days. Now, Christianity believes there is only one God, there is only one Christ, there is only one Messiah, and yet they say that Jesus is the son of David. What does that make David? If Jesus is the Christ because he restores the kingdom of David, what does that make David? That's right, David is a Messiah. And so there isn't one Christ, there isn't one Messiah. And this is why the Jews don't believe in Jesus as the one and only Messiah. They don't even believe he's coming back for a second time. And so you gotta understand your scriptures, that if you are going to apply Christian theology to the Old Testament, you're gonna be wrong. Sorry, Jews have a corner on the Old Testament, and so for Christianity, they believe in Jesus, but not in the last days Messiah, because they believe Jesus takes over that position. Whereas the Jews, they don't recognize Jesus as the Messiah because Jesus died. And because Jesus died, he can't be the Messiah. They don't believe in a second coming. They don't believe in a half man, half God. Their Messiah is to be a human being, mortal, born of a mother and a father who are mortal. And that's essential in understanding the foundation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because remember, it's all about the latter days. And so if you're Mormon and you're looking forward for the second coming of Jesus, oops, you've been fooled by the church, who's refusing to tell you about the Book of Mormon and the secret code that's in the Book of Mormon. Because, as I've indicated before, the Book of Mormon was encoded, and the way to identify the coding is to identify which book a passage has been plagiarized from. Now, critics all know, as Mormons refuse to know, that the Book of Mormon was plagiarized. It's not a real history of the indigenous people of America. Blasphemy! But the Book of Mormon video says it's an authentic history as recorded in the Book of Mormon. No, the church is lying to you. It's not an authentic history. And so that woman who, if you saw her video of in the beginning, before they started releasing the main videos. She says, "Oh, it's great to have a video collection of the history of my people." Oops. Nope, church has fooled you. It is not a history of the indigenous people of America. It's a book of plagiarism. But why is it plagiarized? Critics don't go that far. They say, "Oh, well, we found Solomon Spaulding's book, and we found," some even say, "Oh, it seems to have plagiarized William Morgan, but we don't have the original William Morgan book, so we don't know." That's because the Book of Mormon is his book. His books. 2 books. People are missing out on that. And some of you may recognize that there are other plagiarized books as well. And so, in the Book of Mormon, when you're looking through it, you need to know which books were plagiarized. So the Last War, somebody has already done that. I compared the Last War with the passages in the Book of Mormon, and you can find a little chart online that does the comparisons between the two. And so find that website and go over it, and then now that you identify which book is being plagiarized in those parts of the Book of Mormon, now you can interpret correctly what the Book of Mormon is trying to tell you. And that's how you can know. And so in the last days, it talks about, in the last days of the Nephites, which is referring to the last days of America. It goes over the kingmen who destroy the Nephites and causes them to split up into tribes. What would happen if Trump destroyed America? What kind of tribes would America divide into? State governments, wouldn't it? Democrat and Republican states specifically. The Utah Mormons would be all over it. Yes, we get to establish our kingdom of God again. And so, that explains why the Mormons, especially the prophets, are not speaking out against Trump's crimes, blasphemies, atrocities, and inhumane treatment, because they want him to destroy America so that they can have their kingdom back. And that's bad. The church should always be defending truth and justice, fighting against evil, never wanting evil to conquer so that they can have their own kingdom. And so the passage in the Book of Mormon talks about a man named Jacob who becomes the king with the divided kingdom. And Jacob in Hebrew means usurper, because he's holding on to baby Esau as he comes out, and then he gives porridge to his brother and takes away his birthright, and then puts on a hairy coat to take away his blessing. Usurper. And so it's no coincidence that they're using the name Jacob as the leader in the last days who usurps the government, establishing a king on the throne, and destroys America. And guess what we're doing right now? Yeah, Because now everybody's saying, oh, the economy's in the hands of Trump. Oh, Trump's going to shut down the government on November 21st. Oh, there's going to be a civil war if Trump is indicted for impeachment. Yeah. And so this whole concept of the Messiah, I've alluded to in the other video, and I've done it elsewhere, especially in the book I did on the real history of the Book of Mormon, is that the Freemason, the Yorkites, that the Smiths belonged to, both Senior, who was a Master Mason in that, and Hiram, that has the Knights Templar as the highest rank. And if you remember your Knights Templar lore, that's where the whole buried plates and treasure comes from, and the Egyptian comes from. That's why Friday the 13th is so significant. December, we have Friday the 13th. And it's because the Catholic Church was not happy with the Knights Templar embracing Egyptian, and so they made false accusations. Well, it could be true. I mean, if you're embracing Egyptian, it's very likely that you recognize the Egyptian theology as well in that. And so the Catholics accuse them of worshiping the false gods of Egypt. Whereas if you understood about the Messiah and the differences between the Jews and the Christians, you would understand that it all comes from the Egyptians. The whole Osiris, murdered by his brother, who usurps the throne, and then Osiris's son comes back and battles the uncle to restore the kingdom of his father. Yeah, that's where it all comes from. That's the Messiah, is the Son of God, son of the heavenly king, because that's what Osiris became, was the heavenly king. And so, yeah, then I need to talk to you about Adam God, but I want to keep these short. But that's where Brigham Young misunderstands the whole concept that Joseph was trying to put forth about the Egyptian theology. And remember, Mormons, the church is a restoration of Christ's original church. So it's not the Christian church in the New Testament, it's the Egyptian church. Remember, what is the brass plates? What language? Egyptian. And what was the small plates in? Egyptian. And so Ezekiel 37, the brass plates, which is the combination of the stick of Joseph and the stick of Judah, is therefore supposed to be in Egyptian, or from the Egyptian records. So it's not the Book of Mormon, as Nelson once talked about, and is the only prophet that I can find that talked about it that way. Nobody else talked about the Book of Mormon as the fulfillment of Ezekiel 37 but him. And he's not a prophet. He was a surgeon who got made an apostle because he saved the life of Kimball. And so, let me wind down here. So Joseph Smith was trying to establish the kingdom of God, the New Jerusalem. And you don't do that without a Messiah. You got to have a king to establish the throne. And because he wanted to restore the Knights Templar, it was because he wanted to save America from the threat to destroy America by that usurper in the latter days. And unfortunately, Joseph was murdered, wasn't he? Oh, just like Osiris. Just like Jesus, as recorded in the New Testament. Yeah. Joseph failed as the Messiah because he was murdered. And so the Jews obviously can't recognize Joseph as the Messiah. Somebody else has to do it in the future. And that's what the Jews are waiting for, is this person. Now there's a debate in Israel. Do you build the temple first, or do you wait for the Messiah to order the temple to be built? And that's the thing that the Jews are waiting for. And so, yes, the whole part of Jesus coming to the Americas is all code. It is not a real history, and is not about the real Jesus, but his son. So much to talk about, isn't there?